Good evening. Tonight I was going to discuss my research project on the original intention of the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. Looking at Jefferson's letter to Danbury Baptist and his famous wall of separation phrase, modern jurisprudence has tried to remove the influence of religion throughout the different levels of government and in some cases limit the influence of religion on society. The research project that I'm doing examines the time period of the American Revolution through the early 1800s to better understand how our early republic viewed religious liberty. There are two main schools of thought when analyzing the intent of the Establishment Clause. Both of these schools of thought have been prevalent during different time periods in our nation. The first one that I will analyze and is going to be the basis of where my thesis is going is the evangelical Protestant approach to religious liberty that focused on limiting the federal powers from establishing a national religion, but never really tried to place a limit on religion influencing public policy within government decisions. The main advocates of this interpretation came from Baptist ministers in the late 1700s and even into the early 1800s. And two of the more prominent Baptist ministers were Isaac Backus and John Leland. As you can see here, I have Isaac Backus in one of his major writings, An Appeal to the Public for Religious Liberty, a very strong church and separation document. From the late 18th century through the early 19th century, and pretty much throughout the 19th century, the sweet harmony phrase that was coined by Isaac Backus was the interpretation of religious liberty that prevailed in the practice of U.S. political affairs. Protestant religion was allowed to influence public policy to an extent as could be seen with prayers in schools and movements that were coming out of the Second Great Awakening, whether it be prohibition or the eventual abolition of slavery. This sweet harmony application of religious liberty flourished in church-state relations with very few restrictions until the modernist movement swept through America after the 1920s. The second approach, which many postmodern ideology jurists and stuff have taken, is the secular deist approach. And it has almost meant a complete separation of church and state in our political culture, and it's even went through other parts of our society where religion is trying to be wiped out. The secular approach stems from Locke, John Locke, Thomas Jefferson, and Madison. The main issue with this interpretation comes from how much Thomas Jefferson and James Madison allowed religion to influence government affairs when they were in office. And though Jefferson nor Madison may have expressly advocated for religion, the passive allowance of religion to influence federal polity can't go unnoticed, allowing government buildings even to be used for church services. Daniel Dreisbach, a professor of justice and law at American University, argues that the principle of federalism was a vital part of how Jefferson viewed religious liberty. States, according to Jefferson, would have more of a flexibility in the role of religion within their realm of government. So in conclusion, the controversy over the extent to what religious liberty entails revolves today around this wall of separation. This phrase really came from a letter that is not constitutional doctrine. It was technically written for political purposes. Analyzing these two interpretations with the empirical evidence available will hopefully provide a clearer insight to the original intent of the Establishment Clause.